Nobody expected Jasmine Crockett to sit in silence while Kellyanne Conway screamed, until she opened her mouth. The studio lights were harsh, illuminating every line of tension in Conway's face as she leaned forward, voice raised, finger jabbing through the air like a weapon. Crockett sat perfectly still, a faint, knowing smile curling her lips. She didn't flinch, didn't interrupt, didn't even blink. For a moment, time slowed. The air crackled with electricity, cameras zoomed in tight, and the audience collectively held its breath. This wasn't just a political debate, this was theater, and Jasmine Crockett was about to deliver a masterclass. The stakes couldn't have been higher. This debate was more than a segment. It was a showdown between two political powerhouses from entirely different worlds. Kellyanne Conway, Trump's longtime advisor and strategist, had built her brand on verbal combat, dominating cable news panels, spinning narratives with surgical precision, and earning the title of political Queen of Chaos. On the other, side sat Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, the rising progressive star from Texas whose fiery speeches and fearless advocacy for civil rights had made her a darling of the political left. The cameras were rolling, millions were watching, and every second felt like a tightrope walk over a roaring crowd. Everyone knew Conway's reputation. She was the debate veteran who could rattle opponents with a single smirk, who thrived in chaos and used words like blades. Crockett, though newer to the national spotlight, carried a quiet power forged in courtrooms, protests, and battles, where composure wasn't an option but a survival skill. Millions would later replay this exact moment on TikTok and Twitter. But in that studio, the tension was suffocating. Even the low hum of cameras seemed deafening. Kellyanne Conway had been here before. She was the woman who coined alternative facts, who could flip an uncomfortable question into a headline, who played politics like a chessboard. She entered the studio with her signature confidence, heels clicking, hair perfectly styled, smirk firmly in place. Conway didn't just debate, she dominated. She had turned verbal sparring into performance art, and tonight she expected to win. But there was something different about this opponent. Crockett's calm wasn't rehearsed. It was rooted in a life spent navigating far more dangerous rooms. Conway mistook that stillness for weakness. She didn't see the storm that was quietly building across the table. Jasmine Crockett's story wasn't one of privilege. It was one of grit. Raised in Texas, she knew what it was to grow up under the weight of systemic injustice. That fire drove her to law school, where she became a civil rights attorney known for her relentless advocacy. She fought for families, for marginalized voices, for those the system left behind. Every courtroom sharpened her instincts. Every protest tested her resolve. By the time she ran for Congress, Crockett had already weathered storms Conway couldn't imagine. And while Conway's strength was chaos, Crockett's superpower was composure. She had mastered the art of staying calm under fire, and tonight, that skill would turn her into a symbol. What no one knew yet was that Crockett wasn't just defending herself, she was about to deliver a cultural reset. The tension escalated quickly. Conway's interruptions came rapid fire, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. She mocked Crockett's policies, questioned her credibility, and tried to drown her out with sheer volume. The studio audience shifted uncomfortably as Conway's tirade grew louder. "Answer the question," she barked, her hands slicing through the air. Crockett stayed still. She didn't raise her voice, didn't break eye contact. The only thing she did was smile, a small, calm smile that seemed to irritate Conway even more. The shouting reached a fever pitch. Conway leaned so far forward it looked like she might leap across the table. And then Jasmine Crockett finally moved. She leaned forward, clasped her hands, and spoke. The room fell silent. Her voice was steady, measured, and precise. She didn't raise her volume. She didn't need to. Crockett began laying out facts, one by one, like cards in a winning hand. She dissected Conway's talking points with surgical precision, each sentence cutting through the chaos like a scalpel. For every interruption Conway attempted, Crockett had a calm rebuttal. She quoted policy, cited law, and reminded the audience of the values at stake. Her words carried weight because they weren't just political sound bites, they were rooted in lived experience and hard-won expertise. And then came the moment, the line that would echo across social media. "Ms. Conway, if you think shouting makes you right, I'm happy to let you finish your performance. But when you're done, we can talk about the facts, because I came here to lead, not to yell." Gasps rippled through the audience. Even the cameras seemed to pause. Conway blinked, momentarily stunned into silence. That was all Crockett needed. In those seconds of quiet, she seized control of the narrative. Her calm became her weapon, and her grace became her shield. Within hours, the internet erupted. Clips of the exchange went viral. On TikTok, creators added dramatic music to Crockett's clapback, replaying her calm delivery in slow motion. Hashtags like Nonch Crockett McDrop and Calm Over Chaos trended worldwide. Late-night comedians replayed the footage, joking about Conway's flustered reaction. Political analysts dissected the debate, praising Crockett's ability to win without raising her voice. Even news outlets that rarely covered rising Democrats had no choice but to feature her. Meanwhile, Conway scrambled to spin the moment, calling Crockett performative and disrespectful. But the narrative had already shifted. The public had seen something different. A woman of color refusing to be rattled, refusing to play by the rules of chaos, and still coming out on top. Viewers weren't just entertained. They felt represented. Crockett's poise reminded many of their own battles, times they'd been shouted over, dismissed, or underestimated. She turned a viral moment into a cultural statement. But Crockett wasn't done yet. Her next move would prove she wasn't just viral, she was a force. In the days that followed, Crockett reframed the moment entirely. She spoke in interviews about dignity and leadership, about how composure isn't weakness but strength. She pointed out that shouting matches may dominate headlines, but real power comes from refusing to stoop to chaos. She didn't gloat. She didn't brag. Instead, she leaned into a universal truth. Calm is power. In politics, in life, you don't have to scream to lead. That message resonated beyond politics. People shared her clips not just as political commentary, but as inspiration. Teachers showed it to students. Activists quoted her in speeches. Crockett had delivered something rare in today's media landscape, a reminder that grace under fire is revolutionary. She hadn't just won a debate. She'd set a new standard. The video of Crockett's clapback continues to circulate, proof that composure can be the loudest statement of all. And that's why this channel exists, to amplify voices like hers, to tell stories that remind us. Leadership isn't about volume, but vision. If you're tired of chaos, if you believe in dignity over drama, subscribe and share this video. Because in a world addicted to noise, calmness is the ultimate mic drop.